It's time for the big story, and the iconic Grand National race was disrupted this afternoon by animal rights protesters, forcing the event to be delayed by almost a quarter of an hour. Whether it's protesters gluing themselves to the motorway, smashing up office buildings or chucking paint on priceless artworks, why do we now live in an era in which spoiled, entitled and often middle-class brats who seem to be on a permanent gap year get to break the law with impunity because their cause is so worthy? Never forget the cops on the M25 who asked Extinction Rebellion nutters if they wanted a cup of tea or a sandwich, even though their behaviour was risking lives. Illegal disruption should never be rewarded, only punished. Forget about the horses. It's these law-breaking donkeys who should be sent to the knacker's yard. So should we be scrapping the greatest horse race on earth? What do you think about that? Let me know your views. Mark at gbnews.uk. Joining me now to discuss the big story of the day, Animal Rising's own spokesperson, Alex Lockwood, joins me now. Alex, it was your group that were behind this protest. I think so far 118 arrests. Your reaction?
Yes, that is correct. 118 arrests of people who are putting their bodies in the way of harm, trying to stop the horses' deaths. Sadly, we did not achieve that. We know that one horse died in the Grand National. We know that 3 have died in the meeting. We really wish we could have stopped those deaths. Our aim is to shine a spotlight on the treatment of animals in this country. We rightly think of ourselves in the UK as a nation of animal lovers. And we want people to live up to those values. And sadly, sometimes they don't. At the Grand National, in the food system, across the devastation of our countryside, like polluting our rivers, the River Wye, for example. You know, what we want is this big national conversation. And actually today, the thing that we can, I think, be really proud of is that people up and down the country, this is one of the top stories of the day, people at their dinner tables tonight are talking about this and going, should this race really go on? Do we really want to have fun watching animals die? That's what we need to be talking about.
But we live in a representative democracy, and the way that you spark a debate is through the ballot box, not by breaking the law, which is what happened today with 118 arrests.
Protest has always been part of a healthy democracy, for as long as there's been democracy.
But not breaking the law.
Protest has always been a part of democracy. So, for example, you spoke there earlier about like Extinction Rebellion being on the motorways. Like Insulate Britain, 2 years ago, universally disliked. Now, insulation is a part of every major political party's agenda. Sometimes you have to raise the alarm to bring attention to the thing that is going wrong in society.
But which cause? There's no hierarchy of causes. Which cause is not important enough to break the law? Child poverty, NHS cuts, where does it stop? We have the rule of law in this country. That's what makes Britain a great place.
Yes, and sometimes, actually, we need to challenge where that line is. So what we're about, actually, is about shining the light on the climate and nature crisis that we are facing. Like, we are facing that crisis. Animal exploitation is right at the heart of that in terms of animal agriculture.
And here you are on the media talking about
Absolutely,
it.
yeah.
But you don't have to break the law and attempt to disrupt a national event, which is the Grand National, which millions of Brits have been looking forward to, and which is backed up by an equine industry that takes great care of these animals.
We think there's better ways to have fun than watching animals die.
Well, you don't decide that, Alex.
No, we don't.
We live in a democracy. It's a free country. Yes. I mean, are you going to stop us gambling? Are you going to stop us getting drunk in the pub?
No, because that isn't harming animals. You know, so where there is harm to others, we are trying to bring attention to the fact that that's not who we want to be in this country. You know, 80% of people under 40 don't want to go to the horse racing because they know it's unethical. What they want is like a change in the way that we relate to animals. So what we want is a countryside full of the animals we love, including wild horses. I mean, I bet you never have actually, you know, I've certainly never seen a wild horse.
No, I never have, no.
No, and that's because the only way we get to see these animals is through these exploitative industries.
But, of course, these wild horses would be pursued by natural predators. It would be pretty grisly, wouldn't it? Probably worse than, performing at the 3:30 at Aintree.
Well, I mean, how would you like to live your life?
Nature's pretty rough out there.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know if you've ever seen,
Yes.
David Attenborough documentaries.
I mean, I've seen many of them, but I wonder how you would like to live your life.
Tigers aren't very woke, are they?
No, but would you like to live your life as a whipping boy for a master, trained and forced to act in ways, or would you rather take your chances as a free, independent being? You know, most of us want to live freely, and I understand that. That's why we have a democracy. But what we're saying is actually these animals who are forced into these races, Animals, the horses, thoroughbreds, they want to run. They don't necessarily want to race. And they certainly don't want to break their necks and die, which is what happened to Hill 16 at the first fence.
Which is very sad. And that certainly supports your position. It was tragic today that a horse died in that race wouldn't have if there hadn't been a race.
But that's the 50th horse this year in horse racing. A horse dies every other day in British horse racing, just on the tracks. And that's not even talking about in the paddocks and in the
But nobody questions your right to protest legally or indeed raise this conversation, which I've got to say has been going on for many years now. And I think there are some aspects of your argument that resonate. But the bottom line is it's the methods that my viewers and listeners will object to.
The actual evidence out there, and I don't want to get very technical, but the evidence out there is that peaceful protest and civil disruption...
Which is not what happened today.
But it works in terms of changing public opinion over time. And actually, that's really what we need to do when we're in the middle of a climate crisis, which we are. And our treatment, our exploitation of animals is right at the centre.
By the way, we're conflating animal welfare with the climate crisis. I think that's a little bit too much for one issue.
No, I mean, you may be talking about animal welfare. We are talking about stopping harm to animals. We're not about...
Well, if that's the case, then we won't be eating meat or fish.
Let's hope not, yeah. But, I mean...
And you get to decide that as well.
No, not
so you cancel the Grand National. You're stopping me having a steak or eating some wild salmon. What else are you going to do that controls my life?
I really wish I had the power to do that, and I don't.
Well, I know you do, and that's why it's scary.
No, but we don't. We do not, and that we do not, because if we did, we would do it. What we have is an ability to put our bodies in the way of harm, and actually the climate crisis is really harming us. Animal agriculture is, we know, one of the leading causes. It's the leading cause of deforestation, of water use, of land use. Animal agriculture is the thing that's killing the River Wye.
You have to decide if you're what you're more worried about, animal cruelty or the debatable issue of climate change. Which is it? Pick a horse. You can't ride both.
No, well, absolutely.
Because now you're conflating, and this will confuse the message, and I think undermine your argument.
No, because the key solution, actually, to the climate crisis that we are facing is a safer, secure
So in
food
fact,
system.
Alex, look, you're a nice man, but I think you're a rather canny politician, and you're using the Trojan horse of animal cruelty and animal welfare to get the net zero agenda in and to remove meat from the national plate and to turn us plant-based. No, that's the real agenda, and I've caught you red-handed. Don't even need a photo finish.
Yeah, but we're not hiding that. Because I desperately care about
Right, so will you admit then you're not worried about animal welfare? This is about a bigger agenda, which is to turn Britain plant-based.
Animal welfare is about the incremental improvements in the way that animals are treated, but they're still treated as property. I'm against animals being treated as property. I'm against them being exploited in any way. So obviously that's why I'm vegan, because I want to live aligned with my values.
But why do we have to also live aligned with your values?
You don't.
Why have we got to go plant-based as well, given the fact that we've been an omnivorous species for millions of years? And now you decide in 2003 that we're going to go woke and we're going to eat salad.
But we're not deciding. What we're saying is we need this big national conversation, because actually what is facing us...
Well, but stopping the Grand National is not a national conversation. You've broken the law.
No, this is...
And it's the same as Insulate Britain and Extinction Rebellion gluing themselves to the M25, potentially causing death with blocked ambulances. And again, as usual, the ends justify the means.
Extinction Rebellion and Insulate Britain and Just Stop Oil and anyone who blocks the roads always had a blue light policy where the ambulances and the emergency services are let through.
If you create tailbacks, ambulances will be slower. They will get to the hospital less quickly, and people could and may die. There
are going to be millions of deaths.
And accidents, by the way.
There are going to be millions of deaths from the climate and ecological collapse that we are facing. We have solutions to that. One of the solutions that we were offering and want people to debate in this country is a vastly improved, safer, secure food system that doesn't have animals at the centre, because animal-based food systems are absolutely incredibly inefficient, and they are terrible for the climate. That is the truth. And they are incredibly cruel to animals. And that's what we're trying to bring to the national conversation and have on the table for people to have a conversation. So when I have this conversation with my uncle and auntie, who I know are fans of GB News, you know, they're good British people. They grow their own vegetables. They probably grow the marrows as big as your next guest, They want to have this conversation. They want to have it, you know, and they want to be engaged with it. And so do we. And so that's what we're bringing to the table.
Alex, good on you for coming in the studio and being very articulate. I don't agree with everything you've said, but you've made your points very fairly, so thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Brilliant stuff. Your reaction, please, Mark at gbnews.uk. Let me give you a quote, and this is from the racing authorities, the British Horse Racing Authority, no less. My team have been in touch with them, and they've told Mark Dolan tonight the following. Huge improvements have been made in recent years at Aintree Racecourse to improve the welfare of horses racing there. Changes introduced since 2012 include adapting and rebuilding the fences, facilities and stables. From the very moment a horse arrives at Aintree, the most important thing to the racecourse is its safety and welfare. Well, it's all about opinions. What's yours? Do you think that protesters were right to try to stop the Grand National today? Mark at gbnews.uk. Should we do away with the race? Let me know your thoughts. Earlier this evening, we asked you on Twitter, were they right to go and disrupt the Grand National? Of course, that's the group represented by Alex Lockwood, Animal Rising. The votes are in. 19% say yes, 81% say no, it was the wrong thing to do. Lots more on that to come.